we are ready to go. I have to turn up my mic just a little bit because I'm going to have to be somewhat quieter. Hello? It's too loud. How's that? It's a little bit better. There we go. Not bad. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the 19th round of this CCRL Elite Tier season at the Baku City Street Circuit in Azerbaijan for what should be a very interesting round, to say the least. This is one of those tracks that definitely gives drivers difficulties time and time again whenever they actually show up to this circuit. It is always a crapshoot on who's going to win and what the action is going to be. But we're here tonight on what is definitely one of the more challenging circuits, not because it's technically difficult, but because there's so much overtaking, there's so much action. It's a track where you need a lot of straight line speed, and there's obviously Sector 2, the castle section, is a part of the track where you need downforce to get through. So it's and it's raining. Who would have thought that? Only one rain race in the history of the Baku City Street Circuit. That, I believe, was its initial. That was, I believe, its inaugural season in 2016, I believe that was. But we're here today, and we have rain on track. Intermediates only for the time being, it appears to be. It doesn't look like we're going to get the full wets, which will be helpful to our drivers. So it looks as if our first driver out on track is going to be that of the AlphaTauri of Pontiac Bandit. First one out on track here. I'm quite interested to see how whenever we have situations like this where we need, where we have like a wet qualifying session or, vice versa between a wet quali and a wet race, it does sometimes get interesting to see whether or not the drivers put on, maybe a higher downforce setup for the qualifying session and, get some good, get some good track position to start the Grand Prix, rather than actually trying to make it up in the race. So I don't know what the weather is going to be like for the actual Grand Prix itself. What we do know is this: the rain is falling. It looks like it's going to be consistently falling here. Pontiac Bandit first out on track on the intermediate tires, as you can see, but yeah, should be an interesting turn of events, to say the least. Will we see drivers prioritize downforce? Will we see them prioritize straight line speed, knowing that the race could be dry? That's going to be the question on hand, and, the AlphaTauri of Curveball has immediately binned the car here somewhere. We're along with Reimer. This is coming out of turn 6, and, the car's disappeared, but I can go ahead and assume he's lost the car. Oversteer coming out of that corner, the right-hander. And, that is a very quick end to the qualifying session for the AlphaTauri in question. So Pontiac Bandit making his way down the hill towards turn 16 now, the left-hander. He's going to be the first driver, once again, to get a time lap underway here. Only a couple of rounds left in this CCRL season. We do have, and it does look as if it's going to be a dry race. Curveball not happy with that one. Barely tapped the wall. What is damage on? His session is to an early bath for him, as they say. Hungaro Ring next week, May the 1st. Paul Ricard, the penultimate round of the season for the redemption round, and Yas Marina to round out the season. It is that of Pontiac Bandit. First driver out on track here. A little bit of slide on the back end, as you would expect, given these adverse conditions. Now, this track, very, very difficult in this game. It feels like no matter what setting, no matter what time of day, no matter what the weather is, the track does feel very green. And I think Pontiac is definitely looking at that here, like that's the case. Whether or not he's able to put down together a competent lap here, it's going to be the question. Again, a lot of spin on the back end coming out of turn 3, but for the time being, looks as if the car is held quite well. Not too sure if he's going to be able to hold on that way, but he looks like he's decently comfortable with the car for the time being. As it looks as if Antonio has lost it going through the first corner. Oh, and Pontiac Bandit, well, I'm afraid what he's done there, he's gotten the braking zone just that much wrong. Going into the corner at turn 7, and what was looking to be at least a timed attempt there for the AlphaTauri results in a double DNF from the qualifying session from the AlphaTauri team. Shiesty has retired now. That is coming out of turn 19. The very quick right-hander there as his teammate of Trackside is going through now. Hey, Trackside's back on the grid, just on track and not in the box. And, well, we are only a couple of minutes into the session. We've got ourselves 5 cars out of the session already. Not good. That was that of official... How do I say that? Official close? I'm going to say close from now on. Close lost it going into turn 7 there. Antonio, we're not sure where he went off. We did see Pontiac Bandit go off into that same turn 7 corner, which, matter of fact, maybe we're going to see Bong and have that same sort of thing. Now, again, this is a corner you really need to get correctly. You got to straddle the curb on the inside there. The braking zone is very, very difficult to get right. So the potential of getting that wrong, as we've seen, very, very likely. Reimer down the pit straight now, 204 miles an hour, even in the wet, is impressive. 152.418. Not sure that's going to be the fastest attempt that we see, but it's definitely one on the board, and that's more than 5 other drivers can say for the time being. We do also have the Aston Martin of Angry Walrus on a timed attempt. He's making his way towards turn 15 and 16 now. This is 15. Early on the brakes, exits nicely. Down the hill towards turn 16. And I think pretty much the hardest part of the lap is over. He'll have to still manage to get through the 18 and 19 flick here safely. But if he does that, it should be relatively well off. And I'm afraid Bongit has retired, and that is coming out of the corner as well. Yet another car off to the inside, and now it's almost looking as if the minority of drivers is actually those who are still out on track. We've had 6 retirements already here just in the qualifying session. Walrus has gone second, 376. About a second behind Reimer, which, again, we didn't really know if that was going to be the best lap or not, but for the time being, it looks a good one. Trackside on the timed lap now, as well as Agnote and the other Red Bull, who is starting one. Trackside down the pit straight, heading towards the start-finish line here. It looks as if this is going to be a lap he tries to complete, at least to get one on the board. And, the Aston Martin of Manson has actually retired now. His teammate of Walrus going past that. He's done it into the braking zone at turn 3. Peak hour goes third, and I tell you what, a time even into the... A time like peak hour at the moment, it could very well be a time that gets him into the top 5 at the moment. We have 8 drivers still in this session. 7 have retired. A 50-50 split, and we've only got 3 times on the board. Reimer goes 151.685. It does appear that the track is starting to not necessarily dry up, but the rain is starting to get a little bit lighter. I'm sure, which is good news to those out on track, although if you're one of those who aren't on track, you would have wished you had that one about 10 minutes sooner. Peak hour through 5 and 6 now. Currently 6 seconds off the pace, but that's good enough for 4th at the moment. We do have Walrus and the Red Bull of Agnote. Agnote making his way in towards turn 15 now. Heavy on the brakes on the way in, as you'd expect. Had to kind of become a little bit more careful there going through turn 15. He could have held exit better, but I think he was more concerned about getting through the corner cleanly. Onyote on the way here for a top 5 timed attempt. And he's done 18 and 19, at least safely then. Down the pit straight he goes. He is really maxing it in 7th gear there. Down the pit straight he goes, and across the line for Onyote. It is going to be 3rd, 153.725. Splits the 4 others with timed attempts currently. Finds himself 3rd, only better than John the Prince by about 2.5 tenths of a second. As we now have, that's the Mercedes of Reimer slow, although he's on an in-lap here shortly. Peak hour 7 seconds slower through Sector 2. He's not going to be on a representative lap here. John the Prince 2 tenths quicker through Sector 1. He'll be coming up to the Sector 2 timing line as he gets towards turn 16. Trackside Johnny Damon Hemphead. Still the 3 yet to put together timed attempts of the actual on-track cars, but I will say, thankfully enough, it does appear like the race will be dry. 16 1,000 slower through Sector 2, and that was a big slide coming out of turn 16 and 17 there, I would assume, unless John the Prince has some time left to be had here. Going through the 3rd sector, he's probably not going to improve. Again, he only needs 2 tenths, and Johnny Damon is retired. That is, where is that? That is coming out of turn 1. I think he's, turn 2. I think he's just hit the wall too much. And we are officially 7 drivers left. 8 have retired in what is going to, well, it says migrating host. I don't think that was supposed to happen. Bongit has left. Has he done that on purpose? I kind of doubt it. But either way, that's what's happened. We do now have the Red Bull of Trackside on an outlap here, making his way down the pit straight. Across the line he goes, has the ability to go top 5 here if he does put together a halfway decent lap. Let's see what he does. A little bit tentative through turn 1, as you could imagine. That's totally normal for these conditions. In through turn 2, he's gone wide, but he's kept it clean. Heading towards turn 3 now. We saw a couple of drivers bin it over here. Assuming, yeah, it's going to be a really early braking zone here, although it looks as if he's holding it quite alright. This is the one he may need to be afraid of here, is this turn 4. It's a much faster corner than the other 3 of the 90 degrees that we've had. Going up to 5 and 6 now. I tell you what, Trackside doesn't look like he's on a bad attempt right now. That rain steadily falling, although, albeit it does appear that it's gotten lighter, but still falling here. We've got the Ferrari of Hemphead making his way to turn 3 now. One of the only other drivers, one of the 2 drivers, yet to put together a timed attempt, and he's on the full wets. Bold decision. I'm curious to see if that's the better strategy to have at the moment. It doesn't really appear that he's any better off than those in the intermediates, but it's going to be something to look at. Trackside has managed the beginning bit of the castle section very well. He'll be coming up to the end of Sector 2 here momentarily, through turn 15 now. Tell you what, it has to be said, that was one of the better takings of turn 15 that we've seen so far. So 129.38. Go through Sector 2. A lot of curve on the outside there. Somehow he's kept the car under control. That one's a little scary with a raised curb. He's done a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater grind and somehow has kept the car in one piece. A little squirrely going through 18 and 19. Had to have a big lift coming out of turn 19. It's going to hurt his time overall here, but still might be a halfway decent one. And across the line he goes. Will go 5th, 155.544. That's at least a good enough lap to get one on the board here and put yourself at least in the top 7 cars, which albeit doesn't sound like a lot, but what we do now have is Angry Walrus making his way around. But I'm curious to see Hemphead. Let's see what kind of lap he's putting together here. And unfortunately, it's just not going to be representative, I'm afraid. I was really curious to see if the wets were going to be that much better off. He's got a good toe there from trackside as Angry Walrus, heading towards turn 3. 5 minutes and 50 seconds remaining here. Out of turn 4 he goes, down the straight towards turns 5 and 6. 5.5 minutes remaining now. Nearly 0.4 of a second quicker. And I tell you what, it does look as if the rain has stopped falling, hasn't it? It does seriously look like it's that way. No longer see the rain beating on the chassis of the car. Has to be said. We're going to be entering the dry territory here very quickly. 5 minutes to go. And I honestly, maybe for the fellas that actually crashed out, maybe was that something like they didn't see that was going to get dry towards the end of the session, because I tell you what, if we had just waited throughout the beginning end, we would have had ourselves a hell of an end to the qualifying session, and we would have had at least, I would think, 10 drivers with time to temps. Walrus is 2 seconds quicker through Sector 2, making his way through turns 18 and 19 coming up now. If he keeps it clean, this will surely be the time for pole, and does well. Reimer, I think, may want to consider getting out here soon. The reason I say that is the track is only going to get drier, these times are only going to get faster, and Walrus has abandoned this timed lap. That is a bold decision. He was on pace for a great one there, and he's decided to come in as most likely fitting the dry compounds here any minute. Trackside has decided to stay out. Now, he may be able to put down a halfway decent time here. Still on his intermediate tires. If he does improve, the laps will get quicker. I'm just wondering, will the track dry out enough for these guys here, arguably putting on the dry tires? Is it going to be dry enough to really get us in a situation where those will be usable? For the time being, you can still see the track is very, very greasy. There is still not necessarily standing water, but we still see the spray coming up from the back end of the car. I would go ahead and assume that the intermediates are still the way to go. Although Anyotse, John the Prince, and Pete Gower will be putting on the softs here momentarily. Exiting turn 6 is that of Trackside, in towards turn 7 now. Bonget is rejoined deep into the corner. He holds it together very nicely. Well, I say very nicely, he's at the very least kept it together, which is more than could be said for a lot of the drivers out here. 3 minutes and 15 seconds to go. The track still does have a slight gloss to it. It is getting drier, but with no cars running, now I don't really know if that's how the physics works, but with no cars running, we can assume that the track is going to kind of stay greasy here. Maybe by the time Trackside finishes this lap, the dry tires will be worth going for. As a matter of fact, John the Prince out on track now with the soft tires. There is still spray being evacuated from the tires in the back end. I think it is still intermediate conditions here. 2.5 minutes remaining. Now, does Trackside decide to stay out? I don't really think he's going to improve time-wise. Well, he will. He's not really going to leapfrog anybody on the timing charts. No, as a matter of fact, he's still about 7/10 slower than John the Prince. So maybe it was going to be in Trackside's best interest there to try to come in for the softs. What I will say is that Reimer has come out on another set of intermediates. John the Prince, still the lone driver with the softs, and always going to go deep into 15. Well, I tell you what, only somehow he's kept that one together. I'm going to turn down the car audio really quick. Apologize. I just know that I have to be quiet. Other cars, speech, effects. Maybe we could turn that down a little bit. Well, John the Prince now making his way down the pit straight. And heading towards what will be the first lap of the session on a dry compound tires. But as you can see, the spray is still being evacuated off the back of the car. Everybody else on an out lap is on the intermediate tires. 90 seconds to go. John the Prince will either get a great pole position here or will have made the wrong decision in going to the dries. We'll have to wait and see. For the time being, though, I will say it does look as if it may have been a valid choice. We'll have to wait and see. Out of turn 3 he goes. We'll come up to the Sector 1 timing line when he enters turn turn 5. That'll be right here in a second. And currently is slower, by 9/10 of a second. So John the Prince, first of all, I don't think he's going to be able to come back around in time. He's got 45 seconds. The track's still noticeably greasy. But I tell you what, I think realistically, every other driver on the grid right now could have a fair shot at pole position. The track is drying out. The intermediates will still continue to be the best tire. Reimer has just made his way around. I think it was actually starting a new one here. Walrus on an outlap. He's only just going to be able to get one off, as well as Agnote. Trackside has gone deep into turn 1. That's going to be the end of his qualifying session. Peak Hour making his way down the line now. He's going to be close, but I think he's going to make it. Yep, 10 seconds to spare. Hemphead, I tell you what, he's not going to have much time here to get to the line. Will he be able to? 5, 4, 3, 2, and he does. And into the first corner goes Hemphead, currently 7th, doesn't have a really representative time on the board. Let's see if John the Prince, it was right slower through Sector 2. John the Prince, I think, may have made the mistake here of being on the softs, and I think he's going to call it a day. His qualifying session is done. Valiant effort trying to go for the dry compound tires. I'm afraid it was never going to work. So Reimer is going to be your first driver around here with a timed lap completed. Again, the track drying out. The intermediate tires obviously still the best, as you can see. Still the preferred tire to be on. Water still being evacuated off the back of the cars. Going out of turn 15 now, down the hill here, heading towards turn 16. Reimer is currently over a second and a half quicker than his previous best. Again, we may be looking at a scenario where every driver, minus that of John the Prince, could get themselves pole position here. Reimer, did you see how close he got to the outside wall there? Agnote and Hemphead both on outlaps. I'm afraid that's going to be the end of their session. DRS now enabled. Reimer's going to pick it up, and across the line is going to go Reimer, and he's going to improve by a lot. 149.620. Walrus has a lot of ground to make up here, but he will have DRS. I tell you what, talk about perfect timing there for Reimer. Although, yeah, Hemphead wouldn't have had it either. Yeah. Reimer may have actually been at a disadvantage. He got it midway down the straight. Walrus, it does improve by 2.5 seconds. Slower than Reimer by over a second still. Trackside is done. Peak Hour down the straight now. He won't improve. Hemphead did not put together a timed attempt in time. So it will be that of Reimer, your pole sitter for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, in a session which has seen 8 out of the 15 drivers retire on track in a crash. And it's been largely dominated by the intermediates. A couple of the drivers chose the full wets, although it was not necessary. John the Prince tried to go for the softs. Didn't quite do it in time, but dry race yet to come here. Reimer on pole. Talk about an interesting qualifying session there. So, Reimer on pole, Walrus second, Agnote third, Peak Hour fourth, John the Prince fifth, Trackside sixth, and Hemphead rounding out the timed attempts. Everybody else behind him. Have a guess as what's happened there. 25 seconds to go until we get to the grid. Reimer's got a good chance at walking away with a win, but, well, it's anyone's guess who's going to have a good one here. Reimer, though, on pole, over a second, but how will that car act in the dry? So thankfully, as shown and predicted in the weather report attached in the Discord, it is that of a dry session, bright and sunny day here in Azerbaijan. Remember the Hungaroring coming up next week. Paul Ricard for the penultimate round of the season, and then rounding things out. Paul Ricard being a redemption round as well. And then the final round of the season in Abu Dhabi at the Yas Marina circuit for what should be a full-distance Grand Prix. I do hope that gets changed if we don't have that many drivers. But either way, only a couple of rounds left. We'll take you through the Constructors and Drivers Championships going into today. After Vegas last week, Walrus leads 461 to Reimer's 437. Guzman 429. The pair of the Alfa Romeos 382 and 357 for John the Prince and Nick Nack. Or sorry, Johnny David and Nick Nack. Urban 6th, Old and Slow 7th, Pontiac Bandit 8th, Owa 9th, and Bong at rounding out the top 10. As far as the constructors are concerned, Alfa Romeo still lead 739 to Mercedes' 696, Aston Martin 688, McLaren 564, Ferrari 421, AlphaTauri 398, Haas 375, Red Bull 333, Alpine 182, and Williams 167. So then here we are. I mean, after the qualifying session we just had, all bets are off, has to be said. We've got 8 drivers on the grid out of the 15 who have yet to put together a timed attempt. Not only yet to put together a timed attempt, they will not have had any practice for over 15 minutes, and we're in the wet. They were in the wet, now we're in the dry. I mean, there's so many question marks coming into play here. Well, I'm curious to see if Reimer's going to be able to keep that top spot. He's got Angry Walrus to the inside. And again, what I'm thinking may have happened is that, well, first of all, Reimer got lucky timing it correctly with the rain and ending and then putting together a final attempt there and definitely getting quicker conditions. I'm wondering, though, if Walrus may have set his car up more for the straight line speed for the race, knowing that it was going to be dry, and that he will have a pace advantage here outright. That's going to be my question. Whether or not that's the case, we'll have to wait and see. But what we do know is that there's going to be a lot of guys off to a disadvantage here. And we've got guys like Trackside, we've got Agnote in position to really have a good result if they can hold on to it. Baku, one of those tracks that anything that can happen definitely will. Safety cars surely to be expected. Virtual safety cars, I agree with that too. A chance for some drivers to really lock in their place in these final couple of rounds, battling for the championship in the season. And for others, it really will be a difficult one today. I do know that this track, this game, has been one of the worst circuits to actually drive on in this game. It just, again, every single time you drive here, it feels like the track is so green that you just can't get any grip and you can't put together any laps. I don't know if the drivers feel that same way, but from what I know, even doing this track in like career mode and whatnot, it's not fun. It's not fun, bottom line. Just waiting for the cue here. I don't know if we have formation lap on or off. I think nope, here we go. Lights turning on here, 4 and eventually 5 for the 19th time this season. Now in Baku, they are off. Reimer does get away well, but I think, yes, he has cleared Walrus into the first corner. They fan out behind them, as it looks as if Agnote will stay third side by side there between Peak Hour and John the Prince. Oh, John the Prince has really gotten backed up. It's going to allow Trackside and Peak Hour down to the inside. John the Prince losing spots left and right and center here already in the early going. As they make their way down the straight towards turn 3, it does look as if Shiesty losing spots now down to the inside. He's been overtaken by both Curveball and John the Prince has managed to stay ahead. Curveball trying the inside. Trackside trying to look around. Peak Hour, and we got Carbon Fiber flying up ahead. I'm not sure whose it belonged to, although I think it may have been Antonio here, has to be said. Yeah, he's missing the end plate on the right front side. That will not help him, that's for sure. And through turns 6 and 7 now. Turns 5 and 6. Down the straight towards turn 7. On the way in, I'm a little surprised Antonio held that braking zone as well as he did. That front wing, not only does it hurt downforce, it hurts braking performance as well. Which is I would say, a lesser-known side effect to that whole thing. But the grid really, really congested here as we make the way through the castle section. The top two of Reimer. Now, despite Reimer getting away that much better off of Walrus off the start of the grid, I'm a little surprised he hasn't pulled away. Also being on the mediums compared to the hard tires, taken by Walrus, the pair of the Red Bulls, Antonio Bungin, and Johnny Damon. So the majority of the grid taking the mediums off the start here, and that will mean that Reimer will probably be at a disadvantage here as they make their way down the pit straight now. Very long pit straight. We've got Pontiac Bandit and battling Shiesty there for the 11th spot. Reimer will choose the outside to try to defend into turn 1. Walrus is closing, but doesn't get there. Not quite close enough. Trackside has overtaken Official there, 12 to 16 for the stop from medium to hards. I don't know, this is a really interesting one here. We've got Antonio and Shiesty on the way in here already. It looks as if the pair of the Red Bull drivers have, they have inverted positions to start. I say that. Actually, Trackside being a top here. Trackside having raced in the Pro Tier. Now, or the Pro Tier to the Elite Tier, apparently from what I've heard, is not the biggest of difference between the two. Although, I think that when you have the assist difference between them, naturally you will go faster with the less assists that you use. But if you're a driver that relies on them like me, you will not improve that way. So Trackside doing really well here in the beginning, currently holding on to the 3rd spot. Walrus nearly went really wide through turn 7. Somehow he was able to hold on to the car. And with a yellow flag, it's going to be that of Bong It, who it looks as if has hit a wall somewhere. Yellow flag being displayed. Oh, and now we've got a double DNF into the Charles Leclerc corner. The virtual safety car on track. Johnny Damon piles into the corner. Bongit couldn't react. And we've got 2 cars out of the Grand Prix early. Johnny Damon and Bongit. Double dosage of DNF for the Italian teams. And the virtual safety car being upgraded to a full safety car now, as you can see there. So, second lap of the Grand Prix, 2 cars crash out in spectacular fashion. And I'm afraid for Bongit, for what it's worth, not for nothing, Bongit really couldn't have done anything to avoid that. I mean, it's one of those corners that's hardly wide enough for 1 car, never mind 2. So Johnny Damon crashing at the angle that he did was never gonna leave Bongit enough space into the corner to actually figure out a way to get around. Although what I will say is Bongit was already recovering from an incident, so to crash out that way, usually when you're in the situation where you recover from an incident that you've already had, perhaps a spin or whatever, you have to drive careful because the tires are just that much warmer. The car will spin from you at any given point. So I kind of expected Bongit to maybe be a little bit more careful through that section, but either way, I think Johnny Damon was at the point where he was just never going to have the space afforded to that of Bongit in order to have him make his way through the corner. So the safety car on track here. Reimer atop the grid has stayed that way since the start. Actually cleared Angry Walrus off the start. I'm surprised Walrus is hanging on as well as he can. He's had a couple of, I don't even want to say issues with the car. He's had a little bit of trouble handling it. That Aston Martin has been a handful for Walrus today. And he's on the hard tires to boot. On a track with very little to no lateral grip. Trackside up 3 positions since the start. Curveball up 7. Pontiac Bandit, the other Alpha Tauri, up 6. Manson up 3. Official up 4. As far as in the negative direction, I'm afraid John the Prince had a very poor start. He's down 6. Although I believe maybe has he made a pit stop here recently? Yes, he has. Maybe could we get the safety car in this time? We're just waiting for Antonio and Shiesty to make their way back around. So now only 4 drivers on the grid reside on the hard tires, that being Walrus, Trackside, Onyote. That's going to be an interesting one there, the pair of the Red Bull drivers on the same strategy. Safety car still out on track here. I'm just curious to see. Again, both Red Bulls being on the same strategy, that may cause conflicts there. Shiesty on the hards now. He's at the back. He's trying to play the long game here. Only a 26-lap Grand Prix, this. As we do now have John the Prince and Antonio back in. What I'm assuming they're going to do here, they're going to do the old stop under safety car and then stop again for the preferred tire compound, probably the hards. John the Prince, however, has attached another set of the medium tires. Antonio has done what I expected. He's gone to the hards. John the Prince to the mediums for him. Which is odd, because he was on the mediums already. Yeah, a little bit of an odd decision there. So that means we'll roughly get back to green beginning the 5th lap of the Grand Prix. Soon enough will be 20 laps to go here. Curious to see where the crossover point is between the medium tires and the hard tires. I'm assuming it's probably going to be around that 10 lap mark where we really see the tires be at kind of an equilibrium as far as being, equal amounts of pace. Anywhere past that, I would assume I would give the advantage to the hard tires. But for now, the mediums surely still the preferred compound here. That's what we've got the most of the grid on. And it looks as if the grid, speaking of which, is caught back up to itself. So we'll go back to green here, hoping, by the end of this lap. Yet to have DRS in play. I'm assuming we're going to hold on for that, potentially. But as the old saying goes, safety car does breed other safety car. Safety car with which will be in this lap. So I think Walrus will have a fair opportunity here to strike back at Reimer. Reimer got away from the line so well. And Walrus now, I think this is probably going to be his best opportunity to challenge for the lead here in the early goings. Again, you have to wait for the safety car to enter the pit lane, and then you can get going. So Reimer has to wait exiting turn 20. This is turn 20 now, and the safety car is going to be on its way in at this moment. It's made its way into the pit lane. Reimer has chosen to go. Down the pit straight they go. Walrus already has a pretty good launch, but he's just not going to get close enough to really get to the back end of Reimer here by the time they go into the first corner. Matter of fact, Trackside around the outside nearly had a look. Trackside nearly had a good look. Oh, that's Agnote, and what a save that was from Agnote. That car was full tilt coming out of the first corner there, and somehow he was able to hold on. Does drop to 5th behind Curveball now, and will probably get overtaken by Official to the inside here now. Now it looks as if the Alpine has decided to back off. Heading towards turn 3, Reimer still has the lead. Walrus 2nd, Trackside 3rd. And Walrus, I will say, this time was able to hold on to the back end much better than he was from the start of the Grand Prix. After the safety car came in, he's kept it within half a second here. So Walrus, I would think, once DRS comes in play in 2 laps' time, may have himself a very fair shot at overtaking for the lead here. As we've got Hemphead and Official side-by-side through 7. Oh, and the Red Bull of Agnote off into the wall. And somehow, well, we've got another safety car out on track, but somehow Hemphead hasn't followed suit. He is piled straight into the back end of the Red Bull in question. Very similar to that his teammate did with Johnny Damon, which brought out the first safety car. And the grid will be neutralized once more. And I'm assuming if you're still on the medium tires, this may be an opportunity to try to come in here. Not sure, maybe it'll be too early. It's probably still too early, has to be said. I'm not too sure if we're going to see Reimer come in here or not, but safety car out on track once more. So let's see, what does Reimer decide to do here? And it looks as if the Mercedes will stay out on track. Who does decide to come in? Trackside had a look, thought better of it. Curveball official peak hour does decide to come in. Okay, so we got one driver biting for the pit lane here, 3 to be exact. Peak hour, it looks as if Pontiac Bandit and Hemphead all making their way in. Hemphead does have some front wing damage. The end plate on the right front side missing. It will be to the hard tires and a front wing for him. Peak hour looks as if he's gotten away well. Pontiac Bandit replacing a front wing as well. We didn't initially see that one take place, but a front wing nonetheless for the Italian outfit here. So Reimer will keep the lead, Walrus second, and I will say Walrus has been getting away from the safety car very, very well. He's been able to hold on to the back end of Reimer. Of course, there hasn't been much racing, but either way. What I will say is this, though. We may be looking at a situation where these drivers in the mediums can push farther. Again, they've maybe had collective 3 laps of actual racing speed on these medium tires. Of course, 5 laps old since the start of the race. We had the safety car on lap 2, came in at lap 4. Sorry, was it 5? Either way. So these guys running on the medium tires have probably 3 actual laps of racing wear on these tires. That will mean, obviously that will push our pit window back further. We could be looking at a situation where the medium soft could be in play. Of course, the soft tires will wear quicker, but if we stay under safety car this many times, who is there to say that we can't just have somebody stay out throughout 3 safety car or more of worth of tire, take them that much longer than head to the softs at the end, but that's their pit stop. Could very well come into play. And speaking of coming in, pause, maybe will the safety car decide to come in this time? Well, I tell you what, it doesn't look like it will. That is well, it has to be said, that is an odd decision for the safety car not to come in here. I would have swore. Yeah, I don't like that one. Safety car out for another lap here. Well, good news for the medium runners still. At least another lap here where the medium tires can confidently say that they're not going to have any racing speed tire wear. That really, this is becoming a problem for those in the hards, because now they have to think about strategy. Before, it's very straightforward. You stay on the hards, you stay to the, that halfway mark, you go to the mediums, done and dusted. Now they have to really consider adjusting their strategy based on what's happening around them. This is going to be a real patience tester here for any of these guys on the hards. Full disclaimer for you really quick, I apologize. If you do hear me yawn at points, that's not any sort of knock on the racing. It's currently 10:47 here on the East Coast of the United States. I have to get up at about, well, I think I'll leave the house for school at about 8:30, so that doesn't leave me a lot of sleep, and, well, got a long day tomorrow, shooting some news packages for the AA Northeast team for the Colorado Rockies, the Hartford Yard Goats. Shooting a news package there, getting there nice and early, getting some media credentials, and putting together a package. So, long day for me tomorrow, so if you hear me yawn, that's just me telling I am ready for bed. The racing has been, well, what racing that we have had so far is not bad at all, don't get me wrong. But there may be a universe in which I pass out asleep if we get any more safety car, that's for sure. Speaking of safety car, it's coming in this lap. 5 drivers on the mediums, the rest on the hards, those of which have pit under the recent safety cars, rather it be for front wings or tires to be fit. The question is now, are those medium tires going to be good enough to take longer than its predicted stop, which was around lap 12 to 15? is that going to be the case? They've only had 3 laps of racing speed on these tires. They probably could take them longer. Could they, again, as I mentioned, look for a medium to soft type of stop here? That could very well be in the picture, but will Reimer get away as good as he did last time? Walrus and Trackside queuing up behind, and away goes Reimer. Chooses to step on the gas now and down the pit straight. Across the line, green flag back in the air. Trackside this time doesn't have as good of a look into the first corner as he did with Walrus. That first safety car coming in nearly had him around the outside, but didn't have the real estate to get it done this time. Out of turn 2 they go. Shiesty and John the Prince side by side. John the Prince finds the way around the outside and gets that 7th spot. Now down to the inside is that of the Williams of Antonio. Oh, if he holds on to it here, no, and I tell you what, John the Prince kind of defended the line, went deep into the corner, and Shiesty is off, and we've got John the Prince off as well. Antonio, I think, may have lost a front wing, and the safety car on track for the 3rd time. And I think Shiesty really, well, as I look at the clip again, they're on their way into the corner. Antonio on the inside. John the Prince defends the inside well, not allowing Antonio to try to make the move. Little bit of, actually not even any contact there. I think Shiesty has really just hit the brakes too late. And yeah, it has to be said, I think that's pure error on the part of Shiesty. And folks, we have another safety car. So now, I would assume those on the medium tires are going to pit here. I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I've been wrong several times today. Promise you that. Reimer now. Does he decide? Yes, he does. Reimer on the way in. We're assuming the mass is behind him. Oh, this is interesting. So Trackside has stayed out. Reimer's come in. Angry Walrus in as well. Everybody, minus that of Trackside and Official, has decided to stop here. Antonio stays out as well. Peak Hour stays out. Pontiac Bandit stays out. Hemphead stays out. So, the top 5, minus that of Trackside, make their way in. Reimer, Walrus, Curveball, Manson on the way in, and John the Prince. Walrus to the mediums, everybody else to the hards as expected. 2 drivers remain in the medium tires, that being Official, who started on them, and Walrus, who has just stopped for him now. That'll definitely put Walrus at a very, not even necessarily advantage here. Well, absolutely an advantage more than anything. But yeah, he's even if he does be on the medium tires here, undoubtedly quicker. He's still got 7 other drivers between himself and the top spot. And Trackside, well, has been very impressive so far today. Knock on wood, commentary curse is definitely real. But for the time being, that Red Bull has impressed so far. I think maybe has he not done strategy all that well here, having stayed out. Although he did start on the hards. Maybe that's what he's looking to do. Maybe he's trying to go to the hard to the softs. Could very well be the case. So Trackside leads the brigade here down the hill towards turn 16. 3rd safety car of the day here, and we're assuming that's not going to be the last. Uh-oh. Johnny Damon appears to have left the session. Well, it looks as if the safety car is going to stay out one more time. Well, trackside leading them around once again here. They're going to be making their way into Sector 2. I'm going to go ahead and assume that we're going to have the safety car in this at the end of this lap. I hope so, at least. Nearly halfway through this Grand Prix, we've had maybe a collective 5 laps of actual racing here. I mean, to nobody's fault. I mean, this track is very, very difficult in its own right, and we've seen a lot of accidents today. Well, they're going up through the castle section now. Really hope we get some good racing today. This grid, I mean, time and time again this season has really impressed me on its quality, professionalism, and the action. And, well, in fairness to them, this is one of those tracks where safety cars are just going to happen. So, perhaps I'm being a little too critical, but, hey, I just want to see some racing, man. Just like all of y'all. Safety car in this lap. Trackside will lead the brigade here, as well as official, the top 2. Both drivers on the tires in which they started the Grand Prix on, trackside being 9-lap-old hards, official being 9-lap-old medium. So we'll assume that Alpine's going to be in here shortly. Trackside may not need to. Trackside can probably stay out a little bit longer. We're about halfway through this race. Maybe does he look to go to the mediums here shortly, although he's better off trying to stick it out as long as he can, and then maybe trying the softs at the end, considering the rest of the grid behind him is now on the preferred strategy. But it looks as if trackside has decided to get going early here. Perhaps that's caught somebody out by surprise. It certainly has not helped official, as he's actually behind by about 0.6 of a second here as they go down to the pit straight and into the first corner. Pontiac Bandit to the inside of peak hour here into the first corner, and it looks as if the AlphaTauri may get one. And the AlphaTauri gets him, but the Alpine back down to the inside. Peak hour's looking for it, and Walrus, I think, has had an accident at the back. Yes, he has. Something has happened with the AlphaTauri, who was very much in position to potentially take the lead of the Grand Prix at some point on the medium tires, and he's fallen way back down all the way to P11. Here comes Curveball looking for the right side, and Hemphead is not going to defend here. Oh, but Hemphead, what he's done, he has hit the wall. I don't even know where he's done that. Maybe is he... I actually have no idea what's happened to Hemphead. Not many times. I don't really have a guess or an answer as to what's happened. I'll need to actually just look at that again, because I have no clue what has happened there. They were going down the straight so well. Curveball had gotten around the outside. Hemphead... What? He hit nothing! There was not a damn thing that Hemphead hit. The car exploded. I have never seen anything like this before. I never, ever. They were going down the back straight. Curveball was getting around the outside of Hemphead. And then the camera went back and suddenly the left front tire was gone. There was nobody even in the same hemisphere as him, and he's hit nothing, and the front tires exploded off the car. Walrus gets a drive-through penalty for speeding under the safety car. As we've got trackside Antonio. I need to put that in the Discord, because I have no idea what's actually happened. That is gotta be one of the strangest things I have ever seen. That gives Peak Hour the lead of the Grand Prix, that's all I know. Either I'm desynced or there are bigger problems, because I actually have no idea. Well, that brings us down to 10. I don't even know. I don't even know. Do we get the safety car in this lap? Doesn't appear that we will. The message hasn't been given quite yet. Well, if it's any consolation, we're about to be halfway through the Grand Prix here very shortly. Safety car still out on track. I don't even know. I don't even know what's happening. So this time by, we'll be halfway through the Grand Prix in what has been a very funeral procession-esque race so far. One car after another, behind a lead car. Instead of being in black, it's actually in red. But either way, the point stands. The racing when we've been under green has been great, there's no doubt about it. But there hasn't been much of it. I'm assuming and hoping we get the safety car in this time by. Yep, finally, thank you. Top 5 drivers on the hards. Everybody else, 4 out of the next 5 are on the mediums. Walrus is a drive-through for speeding under the safety car. Trying to make his way back to Delta. Peak Hour will now lead the brigade down the pit straight here. And it looks as if Peak Hour has chosen to get going, and the green flag back in the air here. He's getting down the pit straight, and it looks as if Reimer has actually caught onto him quite well there. Peak Hour did not play enough, or the games that he did play off the end of the safety car did not help. Trackside getting around John the Prince, but John the Prince falling down the order quite heavily again. He's actually taken a lot of the outside wall there, going out of turn 1. Through turn 2 they go. Reimer looking like he may have a good look at Peak Hour here, down to the inside, really, well, I don't even want to say lunging for it, but he's made a great one there, Reimer. That's a great maneuver, has to be said. Reimer not always one for known for making highlight reel overtakes, but that's a solid one there for the Mercedes driver, and he already has a 2.5 advantage. So now it's up to Curveball. Trackside, oh, what is this? Well, Manson is ghosted. That would be why Trackside has gotten around the Aston Martin so easily. As the Aston Martin getting into the back end of Pontiac now. I actually have no idea what's going on with that. But Pontiac has fallen down to 6th. Up through the castle section they go. Curveball half a second behind peak hour. It looks as if as they file through, everybody's gotten away cleanly for now. Walrus still has a drive-through penalty to serve. Remember, he's picked that up for speeding another safety car, which has, for the time being, erased any potential of him having a race-winning day so far. It's still a lot of race left to go, don't get me wrong, but it is looking increasingly unlikely now. Mind you, we have yet to have DRS in play at all so far this Grand Prix. We have not stayed green long enough to take DRS. Walrus getting around Official there, making their way through 18 and 19. Curveball getting around peak hour. Side by side now is actually Manson and Pontiac Bandit down to the inside. And it looks as if Pontiac Bandit into the pit lane. As now, John the Prince and Official side by side here, making their way through the first corner. Oh, John the Prince has completely done a Tony Hawk Pro Skater 50-50 grind there across the outside raised curb, and unfortunately has fallen to the back of the grid. Very Lewis Hamilton style that. That was a bit mean, I apologize, but that's the truth. To the inside now is that of Official, looking forward on Manson here. Doesn't have the line. Antonio has a look, not really close enough to make it happen, although too close to get into the back of the Alpine, and he's done just that, nearly gets the wall on the outside as well. But they all stay at least on track and in one piece for the time being. Pontiac Bandit, a 5-second penalty for crossing the pit lane exit white line. Unfortunate for him, he's well behind the grid now, and, well, he's not had another safety car here to kind of save him. Into turn 7, a move being made. Manson around the outside. Official had a look down the inside, didn't quite have the real estate to make it happen, although I'm a little surprised he's even attempted that going into turn 7, but he's done. Official stays 7th, Manson holds him off. Reimer now a 3.5-second advantage here over Curveball. Peak hour, the only driver out of the podium 3 under pressure from Trackside, actually, who Trackside's had a magnificent day so far. On the 3-lap-old medium tires, may be good enough to make it to the end here. The drivers ahead of him on older hard tires. Everybody has stopped in the race at least once. Trackside may have a very good shot at having a good result here. It's going to get down to the inside at peak hour. I mean, that was just not even close between the two. DRS enabled for the first time today. Doesn't look as if many drivers are going to have it. Antonio getting around Official down to the inside. Walrus serving his drive-through now. First driver to get DRS to another will be that of peak hour to the back end of Trackside. It looks as if the AlphaTauri of Curveball went way down to the inside there. Coming off of turn 2. That was a little odd how far down he went, but either way. Peak hour does not have a look at Trackside. That's that. Official may have a go at Antonio. He was within a 10th not all that long ago, and I'm afraid, unfortunately, doesn't have the room to make it happen now, although still right in pursuit of the Williams ahead. John the Prince, who was really kind of struggling getting off of these safety car restarts here. He struggled getting off of the grid as well, has dropped to 8th. We'll look at the positions improved and lost now. Curveball 10 positions to the positive. Manson up 8. Trackside up 3. Pontiac Bandit up 5. Angry Walrus down 7. Of course, he has the drive-through penalty to get around there. Nearly side by side, going up the castle section between these three, as Prince follows in behind Official as they make their way to where allegedly Marcus Ericsson hit Romain Grosjean. Heading towards turn 15 now. Very tight left-hander, the downhill one. Oh, I tell you what, that Williams got right close to the outside there. He hasn't hit it, but if ever a moment to say something was way too close there, that's exactly what's happened. These three cars, this will be a good battle into the first corner here, as they will have DRS to each other now. An Official really close to the back of Antonio here. May even get around him before DRS gets in play. He's using every ounce of his energy store that he can. DRS activated. John the Prince watches on. Into the pit lane goes Antonio. Bit of a bold strategy that. We didn't really expect another pit stop to be made there. Of course, on 6-lap-old medium, so maybe do we see Walrus and Trackside make their way in shortly. That would be a little odd, as we're within 10 laps to go now. Peak Hour within 7/10 of a second to Trackside here for the third spot. This is now currently the closest battle on track, as Pontiac Bandit at 1:44.305, the fastest of the day so far. And Antonio, a 5-second penalty for crossing the pit lane exit white line. That's the second time we've seen that today. Very unusual penalty to pick up, I feel. We don't often see that one being had, but that's the second time today. Up through the castle section they go. Peak Hour is kind of holding on to the back of Trackside here. I'm not gonna... He's actually pretty much staying stagnant. Trackside's 5-lap-old mediums not really pulling away. Peak Hour's 11-lap-old hards obviously not closing in. Peak Hour definitely looks to be at a little bit more of a struggle with these tires. Matter of fact, he's almost hit the wall there, exiting turn 15. That one got noticeably close that time. But now we have a 3-car battle here between official John the Prince and Walrus for the 6th spot. We'll check back with that in a minute. We will have Peak Hour and Trackside get DRS here. Peak Hour has saved up approximately, 40% of battery. DRS activated now. I don't really think he's going to be close enough to make something happen. Trackside, 55%. Peak Hour not close enough at all to make something happen there, but who is close is John the Prince down to the inside. Unofficial, and that one was going to be relatively easy one to be made, as we have a yellow flag coming out of 16. I think Pontiac may have had a little brush with the wall there, and when I say a little brush, he's taken the whole thing with him. Front wing gone, as another yellow flag. I don't really know what the point of that was, but Pontiac Bandit losing it coming out of turn 16. Front wing missing. 3-car battle now, actually nearly a 4-car battle for this 5th spot. Walrus to the inside of official into turn 4. That's a bold spot. He's gone way heavy over the inside curb, and unfortunately will now lose time to the Alpine ahead. Manson, John the Prince, official, and Walrus for the 5th spot here. Down the straight, heading towards turn 7. Looks as if they're all going to make it clean. I'm just wondering where we're at for tires. Walrus 6-lap-old mediums. The rest of them on 6 to 9 nice lap-old hard tires. So it looks as if official is actually, I would argue, probably the best out of these 4 here. Pontiac now, another 5-second penalty for crossing the pit lane exit. Remember, he did it the first time, and that was the pit stop he's most recently made, and he's done it again, and has picked up an additional penalty. Walrus, I'd say, what, a lot of oversteer there with these mediums. That may be a little bit alarming there. Official does not get a good go out of turn 19. Walrus is going to try the outside. Matter of fact, his teammate of Manson wanted to have a look at John the Prince there. Actually, it was the other way around. John the Prince with DRS. But now, does Manson strike back? Manson without DRS, after having been overtaken. The back end really slides on the way into the corner. Matter of fact, almost takes his teammate with him, as we have a yellow flag coming out of turn 19. It's the Williams of Antonio who has been in the car in that section of the track. And somehow this time, Race Control decides to keep the track green. We're down to 9. Antonio was having a relatively good day as well. He was up, down 1 spot after it, but had a lot of triumphs and tribulations throughout this race so far, so to have it end like that, quite disappointing for him, I'm sure. Coming up on 5 laps to go here in just a little bit. So as they make their way through the castle section this time, it's 0.4 of a second between Angry Walrus and John the Prince for the 5th spot. John the Prince actually, for the crap I've given him today, has actually kind of rebounded quite well back to this 5th spot. He's under pressure from Walrus. Matter of fact, I think Walrus is going to have him quite easily here with DRS and better tires, but either way, John the Prince has actually done a halfway decent job striking back here after the day he's had. And it does appear Walrus is going to get this one. He's going to look to the inside as... Oh! Official has retired now. That was going out of turn 19 as well. Walrus gets down to the inside of John the Prince, but it's 2 consecutive laps now. We've had a car lose it. Coming out of turn 19. We're down to 8. Closest battle on track still, naturally being these two. Reimer's got a nearly 6-second lead over Curveball. Curveball leads Trackside by 4. Trackside leads Peak Hour by 4. Peak Hour leads Walrus by 1.5 seconds. Walrus leads John the Prince by 5/10, who leads Manson by 6 seconds. Pontiac Bandit is going to be getting around the carcass of the Alpine of Official here shortly to promote himself to 8, 55 seconds behind. 3-car battle now for the 4th spot, headlined by Peak Hour. Walrus looks to the inside. Oh, he may make contact there with the back end of the Alpine. He does. Not enough to make a problem into turn 7. The track stays green. Everybody stays in one piece and in a straight line. Up through the castle section now. Walrus really trying to search here for the inside of Peak Hour. He's going to go for it through the Marcus Ericsson corners. Oh, heavy over the curb. Walrus slides to the outside. I'm a little surprised he's not at least lost front wing there. That was a noticeable collision with the outside wall. He's taken way too much of the inside curve. What he's done is he's gotten around Peak Hour. But in trying to do that, he's had to take an alternate line that was going to send him wider, and that's exactly why he's hit the wall. Somehow he's actually kept the car in one piece. I'm a little surprised. So still the 4-car battle. 3-car battle for... the 4th spot here. Walrus leads Peak Hour. Peak Hour leads John the Prince. 5 laps to go next time by. DRS will be had here for John the Prince. Peak Hour will not have it. Back to Angry Walrus. Exiting turn 2 they go. The Alpine doesn't have it. John the Prince, however, has to be said, poor on throttle. Doesn't get away well, but at least he'll be within striking distance here of the Alpine as they make their way to turn 3. The Alpine goes quite wide on exit of turn 3. That's going to line him up for a poor line going through 4. John the Prince is going to have to stay on his toes here, because if Peak Hour makes a mistake, he may get collected in this. 0.2 of a second here through 6 and 7. Very tight left and then right-handed corners, and then down the straight here towards the unbelievably tight and tricky right-hander of turn 7, with the outside walls do very well creep up on you there on the outside. Up through the castle section. John the Prince doing well. Really still hot on the heels of Peak Hour here. As far as tires are concerned, here's your look now. John the Prince on better tires than that of Peak Hour, but only just. Walrus now with it. Oh, and I think Peak Hour has clobbered the outside wall there going out of turn 15. Either that or he's gotten really close to doing so, but bigger story is this. Walrus now within 0.7 of a second of Trackside here. Both drivers, 9-lap-old medium tires. Trackside has had a hell of a day so far, and I hate to have him leave here disappointed, because honestly, he's actually cemented himself as one of the top players on the grid so far today as John the Prince gets down to the inside of Peak Hour. But when you have the championship leader of Angry Walrus behind you, you have to wonder how long you can hold on to that lead. There is just certain times and certain drivers where if you're leading them, it does play into your mind that you're ahead of one of the quickest drivers on the grid, and that does add pressure, and that does add an extra layer of thinking in an otherwise situation where less thinking is better. So maybe do we see Trackside make a mistake which allows Walrus to get the position, or do we see at least a hell of a good battle, and for the time being, the latter might be the option. 4 laps to go next time by. Out of turn 6, Tracksides defends the bottom. This is a bold decision for him, and he's going to brake early. And he's going to allow Walrus to get by. Oh, but Walrus nearly loses the car. Through 7, he's nearly gone straight into the outside wall. Thankfully, he's able to hold on, but I think Trackside doing kind of the right thing there, knowing that Angry Walrus was going to be quicker. And also, he's fighting for a championship in this division. Trackside either way, top 4. Really, really good result if he's able to hold on to it. We do have Peak Hour still trying to reel in John the Prince here, but for so far to no avail. It's going to be interesting to see here. Trackside... Actually, I'd say what Trackside holding on quite well. Maybe is Trackside going to be better in the straight line because he was behind by about a second and a half making their way down the straight. He may even get DRS. Oh, and I think he's, as I've said that, he's not gotten away well out of turn 1, and that's going to be the only reason why he doesn't get DRS down the straight here. Three laps to go next time by. We started with 15, we're down to 8. Good news is I don't really think Trackside is under pressure from that of John the Prince behind. I mean, he is losing time to Walrus, but Prince is not really reeling him in any more than, maybe a couple of tenths here and there. Matter of fact, well, I tell you what, as I say that, Prince has gone from about 3.2 to about a 2.6. And Peak Hour is even falling off further behind John the Prince. So yeah, I tell you what, that may be slightly alarming. The news now is that Walrus is within a tenth and a half here of Curveball for the second spot. I tell you what, Walrus is climbing the grid relatively quickly here. He's not going to get Reimer for the top spot. Reimer will have to make one hell of a mistake for that to happen. But Walrus, after having to come back from a drive-through penalty, I mean, this is about as good of a recovery drive as you could have. And Curveball loses it. Well, loses it is hardly the truth. I think maybe he's just gotten a little too generous on the throttle and moved to the inside either way. Perhaps he even moved out of the way for Angry Walrus, but either way, Curveball back to third. Walrus has claimed a second spot. Oh, but look at this. Curveball's going to try it here. Look at the speed by the AlphaTauri. 225 miles an hour is 25 mile an hour quicker than Walrus heading down the pit straight. That's insane. Walrus is going to have a try around the outside here. Bold decision. And he's going to file in line. DRS will be available now. Look at this. Curveball's missing the end plate on the left front side. Maybe he did hit that wall. Either that or maybe that's why we saw Walrus close down on Curveball as much as he was. Just with that damage that the AlphaTauri apparently has now. John the Prince now within a tenth and a half of Trackside here, although with the wing damage given to the AlphaTauri, maybe will we see Trackside kind of get himself back into a position for a podium here. What I will say is this, Curveball is handling this car exceptionally well for having a bit of his front wing missing. Matter of fact, he's handling it so well that he's actually putting time back to Trackside. Up through the castle section they go. John the Prince hot on the heels of the Red Bull here. With 2 laps to go next time by. Oh, I tell you what, that was well wide for Trackside. Somehow I don't think he's picked up a time penalty. Trackside now starting to cut the time off of Curveball. I'm assuming under braking and on the straight line speed that the Red Bull will become the better car. But we are going to have a 3-car battle for the podium here, although does Curveball decide to pit, that may be a viable option. He'll only fall to 5th either way, which I think may be a given at this point anyways, considering the damage he does have. John the Prince for now will actually look to the inside of Trackside. DRS activated for the McLaren, it's not activated for the Red Bull, and John the Prince up to 4th. Trackside on the way in. That's an interesting decision to me. I don't actually know why he stopped there. It'll be soft tires going on for Trackside. It doesn't appear that he's going to be losing any positions. Aside from the one to John the Prince, he's not going to lose it to Peak Hour. Unless does he pick up a 5-second penalty for going over the white line. So I tell you what, I could be wrong here. Peak Hour is really coming around that final corner. Oh, it's going to be a drag race out of the pit lane here, and Peak Hour is going to get him. Now that has to be said, I didn't expect. But soft tires on for trackside. DRS activated. I think he may have a fair shot at getting this 5th spot. Laughed away. Oh, and he's taken a lot of the inside wall there. Somehow, he's kept the front wing on that car. That was a noticeable collision with the inside wall in the apex of the corner. Well, 2 laps to go now. Unless it's Reimer about to start the final one. Could be the case. Down the pit straight he goes. Reimer will be on the way to start. The final lap of the Grand Prix. John the Prince and Curveball side by side through 18 and 19. That's a difficult place to go side by side through. Pontiac Bandit, the 3rd time today, he's picked up a 5-second penalty for crossing the pit lane exit white line. And Curveball down to the inside, outpacing that McLaren by at least 10 to 15 mile an hour there, heading into the final lap of the Grand Prix. If Curveball can hold on to the podium spot despite missing a bit of his front wing, and that will be one of the best defense drives that AlphaTauri driver would have ever had. But he's going to have to do it again. DRS activated for John the Prince here. Remember, this is for the podium spot, 0.6 of a second. Mind you, trackside's within a good gap of peak hour here. He may get him going down towards turn 3. But through turn 3 they go. Curveball really wiggly that time off the corner. John the Prince, 4.5 of a second. Still within pursuit as the leading cars make their way through. The castle section now. Reimer leads Walrus by 12.5. Walrus leads Curveball by 9.5. And Curveball really under pressure from John the Prince here. John's going to try it down to the inside. Curveball defends. Into the corner they go. 1.5 the gap. Big slide there from Curveball and exit, and again. And he's going to overtake him. They're going to be side by side going through the castle. John the Prince makes the move happen going through the castle. Incredible. But Reimer, what's been even more incredible is, well, the qualifying effort in the rain and then into the dry, or, well, the intermediate condition, and then, well, life today has thrown everything but the kitchen sink at Reimer today, but what's definite here for him is that he's going to win the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in commanding fashion over Angry Walrus. But now, does Trackside have an ability at peak hour to the inside, looking for turn 15? Peak hour's missing the left front end plate on the car. Bit of contact there from Trackside into the back end. John the Prince has retired, making their way through turns 18 and 19. Walrus has DNF'd as well. What's happened to Walrus? Well, I think he's done that on track after crossing the line, but here we go. Out of turn 19. Oh, Trackside gets into the back end of peak hour. He's going to look to the left now. Trackside way around the wall, side by side. And Trackside, I think, is going to take 4th here. Trackside takes 4th. Walrus finishing 3rd, although DNFing from the session. And, well, hope you join us next time out in Hungary. Hotspot's been a pleasure joining you this time out again here in the CCRL. We'll see you next time.